Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good, Brian.
So today we are here to talk about the next installment of our sales shift webinar series. Uncertainty is the new norm, and I think everyone in the world can kind of, well, at least everyone in our part of the world can really relate to this topic. Just do a little intros, and then we'll get right into this. I'm Brian Crew. I'm an ex Ernst & Young consultant. I'm a turnaround hired gun professional in my past. I'm now president of Brick Consulting and the prospecting expert for GrowPro. And GrowPro is your top to bottom sales solution. And I'm here with my partner in GrowPro and my partner in this webinar series, Mike Reardon. Mike, tell us about yourself.
Ooh, listen to the crowd. Listen, I'm at Be Effective. That's my company. And yes, I've connected with Brian to do this GrowPro top to bottom collaboration. And we believe it brings the best of marketing and sales together at an affordable cost for small, medium business. And I bring almost 4 decades of selling innovative solutions, oftentimes without marketing and sales. So I have a certain perspective on what we're going to talk about today. Back at you, Brian.
Well, why don't you take off and tell us our first topic on how to sell when buyers are hesitant?
Well, first off, based on what I just mentioned a few seconds ago, I see sales as a process of education. And by doing that, there's no pressure on the customer. And by doing that, I focus on sharing insights on how their solution is costing them and how their problem is costing them and how our solution alleviates that. Plus, today, you have to work so hard to get a customer. I emphasize the long-term relationship capability of building. And so I prioritize trust over, immediate gains with the customer. And because Brian and I have previously in our webinars talked about how shifting buyer behavior is now the norm and you have to adapt to it. I recognize the uncertainty that drives buyers. So I look to assure them that, I'm the guy, my solution's the solution and the company I'm representing is what they're looking for. So by doing that, kind of like dating, I'm looking to nurture, the date, that in this case, the customer journey. So I view every interaction like part of the relationship dating scene. So, you first meet somebody, you say hello, you talk about the weather, and over time you talk about something more substantial and what impacts each other. So that's what I'm suggesting in there. And building trust, transparency, authenticity really avoids some of the things Brian and I have seen in sales, which is the bait and switch, the nickel and diming, the connect on LinkedIn and then pitch you right away. We're not of that ilk, if you will. We're the contrarians to what you've been seeing in these types of platforms. And we're looking to respectively offer, a safe bet. Now, the gray hair helps, but at the same time, we represent the old dogs that learn new tricks, and we can apply, decades of experience on how to deal with, arguably the very volatile marketplace that we have today. So I would close with making the final steps simple. So sometimes I get into customers' operations because make it easy to buy, and then it's easier to sell. And if you can get to that nature, you're definitely adapting to the issues at hand with the customers in the marketplace. And now it's your turn, big guy.
So just as we move along here, just a little housekeeping piece. If you have any questions, please put them into the comments. We'll get to them. We will do a Q&A at the end. So if you have some overall ones, we can deal with them then as well. But please, we want this to be as interactive as possible. Throw in your comments in there. Tell us where you're from, just so we can get a sense of this. I know there's a lot of Canadians and some Americans out there that are on the registration list who signed up for this. So please uh, put your comments and your notes in there. Love to hear from you. Um, Recession resistant lead generation. So lead generation is always where sales starts. Because you can't sell if you don't have anyone to sell to. And I always say sales is about getting the right message to the right person. That right message is it's more than one thing. It's a combination of education and all kinds of things that you're going to do, but it's getting that right message to the right person. So you got to have the right person, and that's where lead generation or prospecting comes into play. Um, and it's a little different in these kind of uncertain times, right? Typically, lead generation is really attracting attention. Mike says we do things a little differently. We're not the mosquitoes that kind of buzz at you. We don't come at you really hard. We're much more like the butterfly in the garden. We want to just float around, be attractive, and draw people to us. Have people come and want to talk to us. That's our approach, and so that's what we do in our lead generation. In a recessionary times, or in times like this where there's a lot of uncertainty and people are a little hesitant, you have to do things just a little different. It is all about the relationship, and it's relationship selling. So you have to really be focused on building that relationship, position yourself as a subject matter expert or an expert in your field and what you're doing. Um, During these times, you got to probably be a little bit smarter. You could probably have to change and do different strategies because, for example, if your product or service offering helps someone grow their business and cut costs, well, right now you may want to focus more about cutting costs than growing the business because that's where people's minds are. But I wouldn't underemphasize. You may just change the priority of which you talk about those. You may talk more about cutting costs than growing, but don't leave one out. But create up some smarter, I like to call them some smarter prospecting strategies while budgets are tight. And sometimes you may have to alter even your packaging that you do, offer different packages, offers maybe some economic relief. I like to say, I don't mean give it away. I mean maybe be more flexible in your payment terms, those kinds of things. Um, Adjust your target audience size. So during these kind of times, some industries actually do better, depending on the situation. Some will do worse. So maybe you want to focus on those that are better, and that could be a geographic difference: urban, rural, cities, places. It could be in certain industries. I know one of my clients during the pandemic, when every other one of my clients was shutting down for that, there was a 3-month period where basically no one did anything. Everyone else was shutting down. They were an essential service. They were in extremely high demand because everyone required their service through that. They were an IT firm who dealt with the SQL codes, and they were able to help people find alternative products. So when someone needed a part and it was stuck on a ship somewhere, unable to get through customs, whatever, they were able to help people find local products and other products that were there. So they were in so high demand during the pandemic, and their business just exploded. Um, you want to One of the other things you do, so as much as everything else we talk about being focused and target, there is a piece where this is a bit of a volume game. So although we're going to be targeted, you want to increase that volume at the top of the funnel. You want to maximize, put the pedal to the metal, get that going. You want to increase what I like to call the layered effects. So there are layered effects when you're doing prospecting of your post, your all the ways you're creating attraction and getting people to see it and doing that. So the layers create multiple touches, and you want to get more touches because we all know it takes a certain number of touches to get a lead and to get someone's attention, to build that trust, to build the familiarity for them to move forward. During these uncertain times, usually that number goes up. So you need to create more layers, more touches. The other piece is really, you want to have your messaging adjusted. I mentioned that before around resilience. And I think probably one of the most important things is be patient, hold the course, don't get desperate, carry on, and you know what? Try and help people, try and help your prospects. It may not be helping them on board, which you normally would do, but maybe you're going to help them just in general by listening to them, giving them some suggestions, maybe encouraging them. But just stick in there, help be possessed, and keep that A lot of times during this time, it's about creating market share. You want to get market share. So when it's always about that. You always want to have as many people, potential people, who are going to, when they do choose to buy something, they're going to buy it from you. You can't change when they're going to buy it, and if they don't have budget and it's a recession, that's going to take longer time. But you can get them on side to buy from you, so that you're the next purchase decision. They're, when they do buy, they're going to buy with you. That's really all you're trying to do. Line that up, fill that up. Your funnel is going to get really, really full. That's a good thing. And just carry on. And that kind of pops us over to you, Mike, and talking a little bit more about that sales messaging.
Well, at the top of it, I can first address the comment by Michael Phelan, about the conversions to discovery meetings, and then of course the MQL and SQL. We can get into more details in the question and answer section, but what I can tell you right now is overall, the studies, the research with small, medium businesses and businesses in general, is the owners and the executives are overwhelmed. So when you dig deep into that, I think it's Steve Sims out from the UK said it best. We're dealing with customers that are low on tolerance and high on distrust. So at this point, they've seen everything marketing and sales can throw at them. And then when you get into sales effectiveness research studies, before COVID, sales effectiveness was dropping in those conversions that you're talking about long before COVID. It's just been aggravated ever since. And we could talk about that a little bit more in the question and answer as far as specifics. But the only times companies really made their money is 2019, according to research, and 2023. And the only reason they made their numbers is because they increased price, not because they improved the conversion ratios you're talking about. And then the AI component that you're talking about, you got to consider the demographics of the business you're going after. It's still about 45% boomers and 45% of Gen Xers. And we see AI coming from left field. So like, there's some stuff to talk about that as well.
I think just on that, Mike, I just want to add a point. You watch when people talk about AI and personalization, that is not the same thing as building a relationship.
Correct.
Personalization is not building relationships. So make sure you're building a relationship with people. And I'm not sure that AI, because there is, to what I've seen, there is yet an AI model that will help build relationships. So you need to intercede. If you're using AI in your messaging and so on, you need to intercede yourself or some human component to help build relationships, because AI does not know how to do it. And if it does try, it makes a big blundering mess of it, and people smell it a mile away and run. So that's a very, very key point, is make sure you get in there and you're building those relationships. AI is really good about building you up as an expert. It can do that. But that relationship piece, you need to have a human interaction.
Yeah. Okay, so my topic at this section is resilient sales messaging that cuts through the noise, which may also help you. The first thing is what you heard me already talk about. I acknowledge the market conditions, because there's always been a piece of marketing in what I do, and that piece is market research. So I profile the people I'm going to call. How important, what's important to them, what did they say, what's the verbiage that they say, and I look to make sure that my first call, my first email, my first social post mimics them to accentuate the possibility of engaging them. Because as you know, there's different steps to even a dating relationship. First, your approach. Second, so your approach technique is in question. Second, you got to engage them. How do you do that? And then third is start to build the trust factor throughout your next future communication. And when you do that, establish your authenticity. And I would say, you heard me earlier say, transparency is more important, which is almost like saying for a leader to show some kind of vulnerability, because you're both in this volatile market. So how do we develop our relationship with one another? And having now coached enough sales reps in the new year, let alone last year, oh my God, figure out what the core problem is before you open your mouth as a sales or marketing company. And then articulate those challenges so that the buyer or your date can see, oh, okay, they see it the same way as me. And that will lead into other areas where you're attempting to empower them with what your solutions can do, but they don't know the logic of it necessarily. And I'm finding I have to, like the movie Philadelphia and Denzel Washington, I have to explain it to them like they're a 5-year-old. I found that I'm back to doing that. But I also do it in a personal way, which to Brian's point, sometimes AI can't do that. And I do it in a way that's engaging. So if I take a page of what a contract deal that I did during the pandemic where everything was shut down, I ended up being labeled a funny guy. Like, my God, we need to bring more fun into this whole thing. Everybody's negative now. So there's if sales is what I know it is, a change agent, we need to change that mood, and that is certainly a place you can do when you're engaging your customer. And we have to be mindful of language, and the first thing I say to most people that ask, be respectful right from the get-go. Don't discount, don't dismiss, don't get panicked about what's going on. It's not personal. And we can get into details of how each of those can help. So, Brian?
Yeah, one of the things too is people tend not to, well, I don't say they don't buy. They don't buy as often or as big if they're not happy and they don't have a smile on their face. So there is a really good piece to keeping things light, keeping things humorous and funny and positive. I think those are all really important. We're going to move to sales process upgrades for the volatile economy. During these times, usually sales cycles lengthen. This is around the uncertainty. People are a little, more uncertain about committing to things, so it creates a longer sales cycle. So there are ways we want to shorten that sales cycle without discounting, because we're not trying to give things away. And it's key not to panic because things are taking longer. You don't go, oh, it's taking longer, so I should start discounting so this person buys. You don't want to do that. But there are things like creating a sense of urgency with them. So whether it's, this offer is good, or more urgency around the sooner you do this, the better off your world's going to be. It's going to resolve all these issues. So creating that sense of urgency with them, discussing the cost delay, the longer they wait, the more the problems are mounting, the more they're not fixing the things that are broken that you're going to help them fix. So having those conversations around discussing the cost of delay, focusing on the world once the solution is solved, like how great their world will be once they've hired you and you've solved their problem. Because the longer they wait, the further the way that new world becomes. And then, if it's addressing too some of the problems that are existing around our world of uncertainty right now, think of how powerful that message is. And then look for additional values. Growing customers versus taking away from competitors, which increases your market share. That's a future win. So if you're going to score, if you look at probably most of the largest companies that we know of now, the FedExes of the world, all that, the companies that are number one in their space, they most likely, and in most cases, became the number one during an economic downturn where they just captured market share. And then when things turned around, they had a lion's share of the market share, and then they became the biggest. So this is typically the time. So if you focus more on growing by volume as opposed to growing by price and product, so don't worry if someone isn't buying your most expensive offering. If they're just buying your small offering for now, gather market share. Market share is what's key right now. And then creating momentum, creating the momentum to buy. And it may not be even a current purchase, just keep people, so that you're their next purchase. Like I said before, you want to get that market share. You want to be the next choice. Don't get too caught up in things. And I know that doesn't help the numbers in the short term, but sometimes taking a long-term approach during these times is best, and hope things resolve quickly. People can't be and stay in uncertain times forever. Eventually they have to make decisions, because things don't go away if you just ignore them. They just get worse. So they will eventually make decisions of some sort. And this moves us on to turning that uncertainty into a competitive edge. I think it's a nice segue right into that. Hey, Mike?
Well, it's a segue with Michael's comment about adding real value to buyers. It's almost like you're in my head, Michael. First, I identify and I capitalize on market gaps. And when I'm teaching sales teams or helping out their outlook, it's exactly to the point that you just said, that we need new ways. So we look for unmet customer needs within their strength, like a niche market. So, for example, for a last mile delivery center operation, they realize they're really up against a lot of competition, specifically in the customer sector of food delivery, for example. So I said, well, you could always look at a place where you don't have as much competition. So one of those areas that was in the appliance or heavy types of packages, specifically they started to look at the last mile delivery and construction, which I didn't think was in there, but it was kind of cool to see. So that's an example of a new way of looking at things. It is really the skill of analytical of what the market is. Then you got to deploy strategies that are uncommon, or certainly not what everybody's doing. So I had them all laughing that I used a 1950s technique of taking a picture of the bottom of my shoe, and then I sent it in the mail, and then I followed up with a call saying, now that I have the foot in the door, can I talk to you? So they modernized it and sent it by fax or by email. I forget what they told me. And sure enough, they got the conversation. So, just kind of have fun with it is what I tell them. And then for future proofing, I look to the strategy, and I would say a lot of strategy out there is planning, not strategy. So where do I want to be and work my way back? What are the choices I need to do that? So I'm looking to forecast where the customer is going to be, and I gave you a sample of some of the stuff I do to get a foot in the door. And I'm actually leveraging a potential crisis that they're going to run into, whether it be cash flow, whether it be a shortage of customers. How do they adapt accordingly? From an organizational standpoint, do you use hybrid or remote services to complement their skill sets, or put their people in that category? Do they capitalize on unexplored niches? So I would explain to them I use Crazy Friday. So Monday to Thursday I focus on what the market is that we're supposed to be winning in, but on Friday I make a completely different type of call. So in a market that I don't necessarily cater to, just to see if it unblocks something. So in the case of a guy that's doing fencing, he was looking for how to do the fencing better. And sure enough, we found this company in Ireland that had a way to do automatic posts regardless of what the ground was. And it was just amazing because, of course, in their Irish way, we have a lot of rocks here. And it's close to double production of how they do fences, just to give you an idea of what they looked at creatively to explore their marketplace in different ways. And it follows what Brian and I certainly were in that world of continuous innovation. How do we keep upgrading our tactics? So every quarter, I suggest that they look at, see if there's something to freshen up. how to build resiliency in your pipeline. Without talking about a lot of pipelines today, just have bad data in there. So, you have to make sure what's in your pipeline is the correct types of opportunities. So, Brian?
So that's kind of our topics for today on this. Would love to hear if anyone has any questions on any of the stuff we said, from mosquitoes to butterflies to footprints, and anything else. But I've heard, as Mike was saying, his footprint. I've heard so many amazing stories of creative ways people have gotten the attention of a buyer to just even either have that first conversation, get their proposal read sometimes, because that's kind of sometimes the hard piece, regardless of what it is. There's always a good way to kind of get your foot in the door, get your thing, get some priority, get remembered, because you know what, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of mosquitoes. You want to be different, so you want to spread your wings and be beautiful like the butterfly, get noticed. How do you do that? So be creative, be thoughtful. Sometimes it's I remember one of my salesperson goes, I'm just not that kind of person, I can't embarrass myself. And I said, well, you can be embarrassed, you can be rich, one of the two. So please, if you have any questions or even stories of things you have done to get attention, get in there, things that you're thinking of doing as far as adjusting your sales approach, your sales strategy, your sales process, as we move into these uncertain times, what you're doing. I do want to make one little plug. If you're a Canadian out there, for sure, I've created a Canadian Business Alliance group in LinkedIn. So please join that. We promoted this webinar on there as well. We are going to be doing some networking events. We're going to. I'm also going to be encouraging businesses to put offers in there for other businesses. The idea is for businesses to find other businesses, work with other businesses, find partners, find clients, find suppliers, whatever it is. But we all know, for your business to grow, prosper, and move ahead, you need to have other people helping you, whether it's because you need customers, or because you need suppliers, or because you even have partners, or even just sharing ideas, collaborating on things, doing joint ventures, be it marketing, networking, whatever it is. It's a great place to connect up with people like-minded who are in the similar boat as you, trying to grow. And so that's what the group's about. So please join that group. You can find it on LinkedIn, Canadian Business Alliance, and there will be some perks to being there. So please join it. There's no cost to joining it. It's a completely voluntary thing. That's my little commercial piece. And if you have any questions about Grow Pro 2, our top to bottom sales solution, from prospecting to closes, you can ask those as well. The easiest way, if you do have questions, if like 3 o'clock in the morning, you wake up from your sleep and you go, my gosh, I forgot to ask Mike that question. Was it his right foot or his left foot? Whatever that question, you can find Mike and I both on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way to find us and get a hold of us. We are there on LinkedIn, and it is a regular place where the two of us are there communicating and posting and doing webinars, for sure. So if you do have any questions, please pop them into any additional questions, put them into the comments. We are going to wrap up shortly, and because we promised you a 30-minute of your time, which we've used up. And if if there are any questions coming in after we're done here, we will respond to them in the post that we do as a follow-up to this.
Yeah, I hurt my head with that. No, actually, it actually works in the reverse compared to employers that continue to do that. I even ran into an employer that 6 years ago I had applied and didn't remember me, and I charged him 3 times more than when he would have hired me. It's just a great story. Listen, in other webinars that might apply here, there was some questions. One of them was during the pandemic, and it was home care business, and the global supply, as you all know, would just basically shut down. And I didn't know that most hospital beds were made in China, as an example. And that was the issue at hand. There's big ticket item. They can't sell it. We're just about to come out of a pandemic. What are we going to do? How can we optimize that? They didn't think of asking their customers, for example, if we can get you beds, can you give us a purchase order for that? So I asked how many they had. They had 20 customers, two beds a piece. And I said, okay, who's the first distributor that put their order first before all of this started? And they named the company, and they said they have 50 on order. I said, buy them all. And long story short, it led to 26% growth. To another customer who does demos like Michael was asking about, they had a great database. I mean, I haven't seen one like that in a long time. So I could see 3 months ago that this prospect had done 2 demos and never talked to anybody at all. They just went in, did it, came out, they tried it again. So I looked up the company, I looked up the individual, big shot individual in lean manufacturing, and told them that, this is how you need to approach this guy. And the sales guy made me laugh because it worked. And the guy said, show it to me in an hour. So he ran to the development team to say, how do I show this demo works with lean manufacturing? And again, long story short, it ended up being the biggest sale for that customer post-pandemic in 7 years. So there are creative ways to get past the challenge that you're talking about, including ageism.
And I think ageism changed prior to the pandemic, and some of the economic conditions that came out of that. There were a lot of young, and especially executives, who felt that they knew it all, as young people sometimes do have those kind of viewpoints. But I think once the high interest rates post pandemic started happening, there was a lot of fear and panic in businesses. There was a lot of fear and panic about how do we deal with various sales situations. And I think they started to realize that, how come these old people, these guys with the gray hair, they're not all panicky. They're all like, this is a good opportunity. Let's move forward. They couldn't quite realize. And then I think it sort of came to the realization that, the people with more experience had lived through events like this and worse, had conquered and become successful through events like this. And that really sparked a change. And I think there's been since the pandemic in the last 5 years, a huge admiration for experience. So having some gray hair has added to the pot, especially if you're going to share your expertise, you're going to highlight, you're going to be energetic out there. You're not going to be a grumpy old man. Just don't be a grumpy. That's right. So, anyways, we're a little past our time. I don't want to keep people from their day, so we will wrap up. Like I said, if you want to continue this conversation, Mike and I can talk all day. Connect with us on LinkedIn. You can set up a call. We both have links to set up calls. You can set up a call with 2 of us together even. We'll do joint calls. And if you just want to chat about a topic, we are more than willing to do so. With that, I want to wish you guys all a happy March 26th. And we will be at the end of April. We will watch for our next segment in the sales shift, where we deal with the emerging topics in sales, whatever they be, whether they be technology, process, people, economic conditions, whatever is there, we will address that. And if you have ideas or thoughts around topics you'd like us to talk about, let us know. Thanks, guys, and we will be in touch soon.
See you later.